There aren't many sapient species as physically large as a human. Some are, but only one, however, is bigger, and they come from a deaf world too. The rating system for deaf worlds is contentious. To be honest, it's more clout-based than how long can you stand on the planet before falling rocks, predatory or parasitic life forms, radiation, heat, cold, pathogens, etc. kill you. Some rating systems have humans living on the deadlier planet, but some of the more science-based systems have the Tyrothans living in the harsher system. Clout really does play a role, though. Most Tyrothans avoid humans at bars due to said clout. Not Galliposton. He eyed the human across the bar. He was sitting alone in a United Continents of Terror UCT jacket. Most people of all backgrounds avoid a human in uniform, but no, to him that was an invitation. A low chuckle came from the beast as he spoke. His voice sounded like a rock slide in a canyon. "Looky there, a human." He looked around the bar to gauge the atmosphere, more so to see if he would be thrown out for pursuing any more trouble. No one stood up, but heads did turn. Galliposton took this as a hint to continue. The big talkers, the we will rockers. Did you know, despite all their talk and bravado of being anti-slavery, they have more slaves than anyone else? At this, the Tyrothan's hands found a dart lying on a table. With a grunt, he spun and hurled it at the dartboard so hard it cracked the wall behind it and kicked up a plume of dust. When the dust cleared, his dart could be seen about 3 inches from perfect center. The human, however, didn't move. No one could really tell if his eyes were even open under that hat. Instead, another bar patron stood up and grabbed a dart. He was about half the height of the Tyrothan. An equally small but confident voice came from the creature as he spoke. The UTC is the only nation to have fought a war to end slavery. With a wild whip of a boneless arm, the dart flew true and hit the board just inside the previous dart. The fellow bar patron, satisfied with his shot, reclaimed his seat and continued drinking. Galliposton gripped another dart and lined up a shot. Right. The slave-owning Galaxy Police here to save the day. He swung his arm, letting loose another cannonbolt of a shot that shook the wall again, this time even closer to the bullseye. Another patron stood, tall like the Tyrothan but thin. The creature had a long torso with many small arms, unsuited for throwing, but he hefted a dart in one hand, then shifted it so that 5 of his many hands gripped the dart. Galliposton laughed and sneered, wondering what this patron could say. A robotic voice came from his translator. When we ask humans to broker peace treaties as a neutral party, we can't get upset when they have an interest in keeping said peace when someone breaks the treaty. At this, the patron gripped the ground with 4 legs, like claws burrowing themselves into the floor, and began swinging his long body. Around and around his body swung, until with a resounding crack, like a whip, the dart was let loose, hitting the board and sinking in deep not too far from the bullseye. Right, peace treaties. His voice grained deeper with anger. I've never seen a weaker peace treaty in my life. So weak that when one Earth president was voted out... His claws mimed the human expression for quotes around the word voted. And a different, older, corrupt one was put in his place. The Democarcals were able to paraglide onto the surface of Jurasso, murder everyone, and make pleasure slaves of women and children, then pretend to be the victims. We are on the brink of the Third Galactic War, and I don't see the World Police stepping up to the plate this time. The lanky patron set down the final dart and returned to his stool, defeated. Many patrons expected a fight rather than an argument, and are now intrigued by the more philosophical turn of events that took place. Eyes began returning to the human's table, but where the human had sat rested only his hat, a half-drunk bottle of alcohol, and a tip. "So, he decided to flee. Smart." Galliposton chuckled, but his laughter was cut short when the sound of grunting came from behind him. The human was pulling one by one on the darts embedded through the dartboard into the wall. The room sat silent as he struggled. No one expected the scariest race to struggle to move darts, another, less scary race embedded into the wall so casually. Eventually he did, and when he turned, everyone could see why. He was a she. Not as physically strong or as fast, but scary all the same. "New game," she said. "This time, after each shot, the one with the least amount of points takes a shot. You first." She held out her hand with her opponent's darts. Galliposton eyed her carefully, then snatched the game pieces from her hand. "Humans, you and your borders. Females are forced upon trying to get across your borders. Children are kidnapped by adults to appear as a young family seeking a new home. Your border patrol doesn't even care to check who belongs to who anymore." He took his shot, swinging wildly and without aim. The dartboard took the hit, as the dart sank in near the edge on a black mark. The human took a shot of whiskey, then lined up a shot. With a graze, she let loose the dart, and rather than flying in nearly a straight line, hers arched up, then back down, not landing far from the last dart, but on red rather than black. She was still down on points, so she took a second shot of whiskey and said, "Your turn." Galliposton expected some sort of retort. He was frustrated at first, but then decided his argument won him a victory, so he continued. "Your race rules are legendary. No system more concerned with what planet you hail from. Your police force targets those from other planets." He took his shot again, wildly off mark. His shot missed the ball completely, and embedded itself into a wooden frame. The bartender decided to get in on the fun, when seeing the woman made no attempt to stand up for herself. Instead, she took a drink, then opted to close one eye, stick out her tongue, and pull her arm back, instead of engaging with his argument. The bartender spoke. "If that were true, Earth wouldn't be the multiracial bastion, and the #1 job amongst naturalized aliens wouldn't be police—" "Shh, I'm trying to concentrate." She bent her knees and jumped up just a little, as she threw her second dart. Again it was not a good shot, but it hit the board, which was enough of a victory for her, as she threw her arms up and celebrated. "You drink now," she said slyly. She was almost cute the way she celebrated a terrible shot, and rubbed Galliposton's nose in it. The tyrant then stepped closer, staring almost directly down at her. "If a male human were here, we wouldn't be playing some silly game. He would stand up to me and face me man to man. And even if he did want to play this little charade, he would at least debate me." "I never said I wanted to debate," she said, eyeing him. "I said I wanted to play a game. Now drink." He walked to the bar, grasped a shot in his oversized fist, and threw the whole thing down his throat, glass and all. Then he made his way back in front of the dartboard and prepared his shot. His voice softened, and he spoke far quieter than before. "Your species is addicted to taking sides. You can't walk into a conflict without deciding to support one or the other. This addiction of yours has cost me everything. You were on the wrong side and killed my beloved. And it's only a matter of time until you pick sides again in this new conflict." Galliposton half-heartedly hefted his dart to eye level, then let it loose. Perfect center. Bullseye. The room was quiet as the human drank, then took her shot. It wasn't close, but she celebrated all the same for hitting the board. She took another shot of whiskey, then quietly gathered the darts once more, placed her hand on his back, and handed him his 3 darts. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You're a good man. You wouldn't bring all this up if you didn't care. But you're right. If a man were here, he'd probably kick your butt. There are probably some women who could too with enough adrenaline, but that wasn't what you needed, is it? You needed to be heard, and I like to drink. Win-win. The hulking creature didn't seem as large as before. He plucked the 3 darts out of the woman's hand carefully and took a shot. You don't seem like the military type. His shot landed softly near the center on black. You're right. This was my husband's jacket. She took a drink. It reminds me of him. Still smells like him. Her dart landed on the board, and she drank. Her now calmer opponent made a move to step up to the mark, but the woman didn't move. But you are right about us choosing sides. We fight to win. And it is only a matter of time until we decide who to back in this upcoming war. Her eyes locked onto the dartboard, as she threw a second dart out of turn. Bullseye. She turned to face her opponent eye to eye. And whether we are right or wrong, you had better hope we are on your side. Her eyes never left his gaze, as she threw her third and final dart. Bullseye. Once again, the bar fell silent, as everyone watched the nameless woman gather her things, pay her tab, then leave.